Right, I need to get the coil and the distributor onto this engine. So the coil, if you remember, has been scratch built because there wasn't one included in the kit. Engines that I've seen tend to have the coil here. So that's what I'm doing. Bit of medium CA. There we go. And then the distributor. Bit of medium CA also in the hole. Is on, it's quite a tight fit, so and then I've got a bit of hose that we're going to install. This will end up going to the radiator. I've had this for years, I mean literally decades, and it's going to go on there quite nicely and then go to the radiator. So it was for a motorbike. I can't remember, Revell maybe, but I've literally had it since the 80s, this, in my cables drawer. And then we need to do some more pipe work. I've got a thinner one. This is Tamiya stuff from a Flak 88. So this pipe work also needs to be come round. I'm not quite sure what that's for, but it's quite prominent. Right, I'm going to leave that for a minute to dry, and then I'll come back to you when we're doing the cables. All my cables are now set, so we can now work with these. So the next thing that I want to do is put the little cable tidies on. So we've got 4 lots of 2-hole tidies that need to go on. So start on this end. Start on this end. You know what? It would be helpful if I put my magnifying glasses on. I don't know why I'm even trying to do it without them. There we go. The world comes into focus. And then we'll put this second one on. There we go. So we're not gluing anything into place at this stage. It's just about getting it, getting the parts on ahead of manipulating the cables where we want them to go, and then we can do sort of final arrangements once they're all on. And I'm just going to get the coil cable out of the way. We're gonna wire up this side first. It's really important that you get this right. There is a sequence, a firing sequence, and it's dead easy to find them. You just Google them. Firing sequence for a Dodge Charger engine, and you know it's the same regardless of which engine's in there. The firing sequence tends to be the same. So that's what we do. So I need to get the right firing sequence. All of these cables have been cut to length with the right firing sequence when we were gluing them in. So hopefully it'll all sort of come together okay. Right, I'm going to put the rest of these on because it's a bit of a slow process and you don't necessarily need to see it. You get an understanding of what we're doing, and you'll see in a moment what that looks like when they're done. Okay, all of my cable tidies are on, both the doubles and the ones that take all of it together. It is more difficult to do the wiring once they're on, in fairness, but they do look the part and look right. So the next thing for me is to start gluing these cables in. So exactly the same process. I'm using a medium CA. It has a 5-second curing time. Actually, I'll keep that out of shot because it interferes with the autofocus. So I'm starting with number 4, which goes on this point here, and what I've done is I've taken some of the insulation off, so I've got a little bit of thin wire that I can just glue into place into the pre-drilled holes. So that's number 4 in. Once that's all dried and solid, we can move them around and tidy it up a little bit. So yeah, cable number 4 done. So probably the next cable to lie is 8, which goes on, or maybe not, maybe now we've done 4, we can possibly do 2. So 2 is the cable next to it, and that's going into that one there. It's a little tricky, but we've done it. So just hold it there for a few seconds. A little bit of breath on the CA, the moisture helps the cure. Got that in. Here we go. Okay, it's the first 2 in, and then this one is cable number 6, and cable number 6 goes right up here. So I probably want to do 7 and 5 first, and this one is cable number 8, which goes here. So I need to look at these as well at the same time. So I think I want to do cable number 1 first, which is this one, which goes there. So let's get them in the vicinity. Anything I don't need out of my way. Okay, and cable number 1 is going to that one. There we go. One of the things that I've now realised is that the cable tidies can pull the cables in a slightly different shape, so the lengths as I've cut them have changed ever so slightly. So next time, I mean this is the first time I've ever done this, so next time I'll be a bit more mindful of that. Right, just gonna bend that wire down. I think it's definitely easier to do this on the real thing. Okay, you get the general idea. I'll come back and show you what this looks like as we've progressed through it. Well, that is the wiring done. It looks suitably busy now. This is the first time I've ever done this. I don't remember that I've ever done this before. So there's always learnings, and there's definitely been learnings. The key thing is to make sure I've got clearance of my air filter, which is in the process of being painted, which I do, so that's fabulous. I do have some pipe work that I need to add, so that's probably the next thing to do. I've got some hoses to put on. I don't know what these are, but there appears to be hoses coming from them and then going down here, so they need to run under and through those cables. I've no idea how much hose I'm going to need, so I'm just going to cut a length and see if and then trim it to size once the engine's installed. First thing is to cut a bit of angle on the hose. So this is the radiator hose, and we can glue that on there. So I'm just dabbing the end of it in my medium CA. There we go. Just hold that down for a sec. Okay, that's in. So what we can do now is just cut it longer than we know we're going to need. So there we go. So we've got a length of hose there ready for plumbing into our radiator, and then I've got some thinner diameter here which needs to go from behind the radiator tube, and then one of them needs to go into there and the other one needs to go into there. So they seem to run round the back, so my thought is to glue it in underneath. And then they run round together and should run through underneath the spark plugs there. So that will make it look suitably busy as well. So we need 2 of those. So our first one needs to be about that length, so I'm just going to cut that there. It's not very forgiving, as in it doesn't hold its shape particularly well. I'm wondering if this is the best product. So if I glue that in there, like so. Let's have a go. Can always take it off. So I've got some CA on the end, and we're just gonna plop that down there like so. Let that dry. Let's estimate a length for this while we're at it. Okay, so that's not glued in. So that's my first hose in place running that way. Sorry, that's messing with the autofocus. So I just need to run one now from this side. So from underneath down and round. So if we glue it on there, and then it can make its way around and then join up with the other one. So a bit of glue on the end of it. There we go. Just a little bit slower curing than you think. Don't know whether my glue's maybe showing its age a little. Anyway, there we go. So I'm going to run that round, and then it'll feed through under the cables, and then that's all the pipe work on. So that's pretty cool. And it certainly makes the engine look a bit more busy, and that's before we start adding on extra bits. So we've got the fan belt and stuff to add on, which will go on there, and it'll start looking proper busy. So I'm just going to keep building this up, but I need to get that on first. Okay, that's all the pipe work done. So we can build up the fan. So I've got two parts to put together first, so these need to go in. So whilst I've got the CA out, we might as well use that. Obviously I'd normally clean the joint up and use plastic glue, but the CA will work, and it's to hand, so let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. And the same with attaching this. That should be more than enough. There we go. So that's looking okay. Now the fan, that's going to need a little bit of weathering, but we can mount it on there. Let's just dry fit it, see what I think. Almost completely scratch built fan. Yeah. So that's our fan on. And then we've got these to add on, which I can't do whilst it's sat in this cradle. Yeah, let's get those on as well. whilst we're running hot, let's do it. Nearly out of CA, but I think we've just about got enough. The fit is so approximate on these things that you have to just hold them into place, so the CA is really helpful. The plastic glue would struggle a bit. There we go, that's looking the part, isn't it? Air filter I haven't finished painting up, so that's not ready to go on yet. Let's get this last manifold on. There we go, that's, with the exception of the air filter, that's the engine done. Everything in this kit needs a lot of work. Doesn't matter, even the simplest of parts needs a lot of work. We have lots of flash, lots of sanding to do, and even shaping, as you've seen. And even simple things like the wheels are no exception. So, the tyres, however, are pretty good. Although I'm going to give them a sand to give them a slightly worn look. So we trim down these wheels. Now, the little squares at the back, we could flood with a wash to make them black, but actually I'm wondering about whether we can open them up. I'm just not sure how thick the plastic is, so how much material we'd have to take to be able to do that. And these sort of butt up like that, we've got quite thick tyres. So what I'm wanting to do is get an understanding of whether I can mount the tyre on this like so, and mount that separately and not worry about them making contact. And I think the answer is probably yes, I can. Which means I can therefore spend the effort to take out the material on the back here to open these holes up. So I think the first thing is to clean the wheels up a little bit. We have to take down where the nub is from the sprue gate and remove that so that the rim is an even length, because otherwise it gets in the way of the sidewall of the tyre and prevents the wheel sitting properly. So I'm just going to do that first. And then we'll recheck that we can put the wheel into the tyre nicely and get that to sit how we would like. Yeah, that sits okay. So I'm just going to get a sponge, get that nice and round, test it again. Yeah, happy with that. So to get this reduced, I'm going to use a coarse grit, so 1/100 grit. And just keep taking it down until we get through. I can see light, so I don't think it's that thick. I think a little bit of this comes off and we'll be okay. I think we're nearly there. I'm actually taking away more than I thought I was going to. If you look at that, I've already taken away a fair amount. But it feels like we're nearly there somehow. Yeah, I think we're nearly there. I reckon I've taken about 1 millimetre away and we are still not quite through. There we go, it's just going now. There we go. So now we know how much we have to take off. We can actually get a saw and cut the back end off, but look how much better that looks to that. So we've now got a nice open. What I'll do is get a number 11 blade and just make sure it's squared off and all the holes are nice and even. And we've got nice crisp corners. Much easier to see from the front than the back. I want to see what this looks like now when we put the wheel into the tyre. So we've taken away about 1.5 millimeters. So I can easily cut 1 millimeter away with a saw and then sand the rest. Now if I just plop that into the wheel, there we go. So we can see the white of the wheel behind it. So what we'll do is, quite often, because there were drum brakes, they were painted red. So what we'll do is we'll paint the backs of these red, so you see red through the silver wheels, and I think that'll look pretty cool. So yeah, or we could do black and then paint a red circle in the middle so it looks like a drum brake, which is smaller than a disc brake. But yeah, okay, that's what we're going to do with the wheels. So I'll crack on with the other 3 and then I'll come back to you. So I'm now slowly moving through the remaining parts that are yet to be sorted out ahead of priming them and fitting them. I'm not quite sure what this is. It's some form of grill on it, so, and it goes underneath the vehicle. So it goes there, but I have no clue what that is at all. So anyway, we'll crack on, and with all of these parts, we start fairly coarse with the sanding, because at the same time as sanding, we're actually shaping the part and what have you. Just because nothing is straight, nothing is clean. You know, it's not like picking up a 2025 Airfix kit and, you know, just clip the parts off, get rid of the nubs and away you go. This is nothing straight. Everything's a bit crooked, everything's a bit wonky. It's just an utter mess, really. Yeah, so this is going underneath the car, so I'm not worrying too much about this part, to be honest. It's got some pretty scruffy moulding on it, but yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about it. We're just going to make it presentable. It's almost definitely never going to be seen again once it's on the car. So this is really an exercise in making sure it fits, which we can just test now. So it goes here, that way around. So does it go there, or does it go there? Not clear to me. I think probably there makes sense. Looks like some form of ventilation box or something. But anyway, it will glue in there. So we'll consider that another part done. So just going through the instructions, making sure I've not missed any parts. I'm doing it step by step. Haven't cleaned it up. Sometimes when you are dipping in and out of a model, which I have been with this, it's a case of remembering where you got up to. So the interior tub, that's been done and primed, so has the dashboard, but what about this part here, 112? What is that? And you know, that's quite a loose position. So where does it actually go? So I need to find that part and establish what it is, and that might help me understand where it goes. It's some form of dial, or maybe even a clock. I guess it's for some form of race car or something. It's definitely not in the General Lee. So that's just going in the bin, and that's one less job to do. What does become a bit more of a problem though is this part here, which is the steering wheel and column section. This is the kit provided part, and you'll immediately see the problem. A, it doesn't look anything like the actual steering wheel, and B, it's not straight. It's quite crooked. So yeah, it leaves an awful lot to be desired. So I had a look at some other kits to see if some of which had more than one steering wheel, give you options, see if I could find something that would make a steering wheel, and no. There was nothing that was much better. The shape of that is wrong, and I don't know what that is, but I don't like it. So I needed a different solution, and the different solution is this. So this is a Ukrainian company, Ukrainian Scale Cars Production, they're called, USCP. And this set has a number of different steering wheel options. So I've not even opened this yet, so we're going to have a look at this, and you're going to join me on camera, and we can explore this together. So I'm keeping this for a sec because I suspect I need at least part of the steering column. So I'm going to have to clean up the steering column and mount the steering wheel on, I suspect. So just get rid of this staple. And comes in a nice Ziploc bag. And we'll get our instructions out and our parts. So we've got 3D printed resin parts, which includes 3 steering wheel handle rims. We've got more 3D printed parts, which I'm struggling to get out, come on, which are the centre bosses for the steering wheels, and they are really nice. Then we've got a little sheet of decals with different logos on for the centre boss of the steering wheel. And finally we have photo etch, and there you go, for 3 different steering wheels. And yeah, it's got little relief etch in the back to allow you to fold it. Well, the one we want is this one here, so N, which is this steering column here. So yeah, let's just have a quick look at the instructions, although it does appear fairly self-explicit, evident to me. Okay. That's pretty much what I thought. So let's get these parts out and put this together, and then that's ready for priming as well. I'm just gonna trim away these, and then we'll take them off the part separately. There we go. we'll put these back as we go. And then steering wheel boss. I think it's the narrower one we want. It has little letters on the back to help you find the right one, so that's great. And then the same for the photo etch. They've nicely put little letters on, so it's really easy to work out what it is you're supposed to be doing. So let's get those out. It's actually quite thick photo etch. I think I need to resharpen my my tool here. Okay, so I'm happy that these can go in my slowly starting to grow stash of parts, spare parts for cars. I'll keep hold of all that so we know where we got it from in a couple of years' time when I'm looking for something similar. It's actually quite thick photo etch. I think I need to resharpen my my tool here. Okay, so I'm happy that these can go in my slowly starting to grow stash of parts, spare parts for cars. I'll keep hold of all that so we know where we got it from in a couple of years' time when I'm looking for something similar. I'll just get these off the part, so you get all these little plastic strands that were the sort of filaments that form the part. You should be able to just knock them off and then sand the little nubs away. There we go, and just to make sure that everything fits okay. Okay, there's a lot more to do on here, but I find they just snap off. You have to be careful because there's such a variety of 3D printed resins. Some are more brittle than others, and you don't know until, oh, that part just snapped. So you do have to be careful. Okay. So that leaves us with a bit of clean up needed on the wheel. The wheel's really nice. It's got the little handle marks on the inside, but it's also got location points for the photo etch. So we'll just smooth away where those connection points were, and there's a lot of them on the steering wheel rim. And then I'm just going to go in with a little knife and break these away on the inside. There you go. That's shortened them, but then we need to just clean the inside a little. A small amount of silicone paper rolled up will do that job nicely. Just sand against your finger so that you're supporting the part as much as possible. There we go, I think that is all good. Okay, so that's that done, but it does leave you with this bit of a mess. You've got all these little bits and pieces everywhere, all these little stubby bits left over. I'll show you a quick way of tidying those up. Okay, so this is super easy, super quick way of getting rid of all these little bits and pieces that have ended up on your desk from cleaning up the 3D resin parts. There you go, job done. So what was that? Well, it's a lint roller. And it works a dream, and these things are cheap as chips. So it's something now that actually is an essential on my desk for picking up bits and pieces and keeping the desk clean. Yeah, brilliant idea. Okay, so we're going to start by putting a slight bend into the steering wheel here. I don't particularly want to see these little fold lines, so I'm going to actually fold it the opposite way than you should. There we go. I think that'll look better. So I've just done a gentle bend backwards. Just a little bit, and then we'll test fit that into the steering wheel. Okay, that fits okay. Happy with that. So that's ready to be glued. So to aid me with that, I'm going to put the part in self-locking tweezers so that I can be hands-free while gluing. So we'll lift the part out. And we're going to put a little spot of medium CA onto my glue palette. You might know my glue palette as a milk bottle top. And then using my homemade applicator, we can put a small spot of glue on each of the 3 location points. course, I just plopped it on when there was no glue in place, and now there's glue there. It really wants to mess about, doesn't it? There we go. Just breathing on it accelerates that process of the glue bonding. Okay, so we can flip that over now, and we've got this little photo etch ring that needs to go onto there like so. So I'm going to put that on. There we go, just a hint of CA. So I tend to use 5 seconds CA, so I've got a little bit of time for wriggling around with the part. There you go. Okay, so next job, I'll put that to one side, is to glue it to this here. So just orientate the part so that it's facing squarely upwards. We can put our adhesive around the rim there. I'm also going to put a little bit on the inside. That'll just save me some time in a minute or two. So the important thing here is to make sure you get it nice and square. And then centre boss just drops in to finish that off, and that's our steering wheel done, and it looks an awful lot better than that. An awful lot better. So pretty happy with that, and that is now ready for priming. So another good job done. As I suspected, the length of the steering column is not sufficient, so we need to modify this one and glue it onto this one. So first things first, let's get rid of all this flash on the back end and tidy that up. That'll allow us to place the part in the allotted hole that's designed to fit. So let's just test the fit. Yeah, that's sort of there. I personally think that sticks out a little bit too far. I guess it had a reach adjustment, I'm not sure. It might have been just adjust the seat in those days, possibly. But my gut feel is cut the steering wheel off at its base here, and that would probably be about right. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to whip that off, and then we'll see where we're up to. The problem I now have is that the kit part is a fair bit wider than that, and that doesn't look right to me at all. So I think I actually need to either thin this down to this diameter or find a bit of plastic rod or something that's the correct diameter. So I'm going to have a look in my scratch building parts and see what I've got. So I've got some plastic rod that's almost the same diameter. So I just want to see how that fits into there. Oh, no problem at all. So I think that's my solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just flatten the end. So I just get that nice and flat, and then we can cut a section off. About that length there. I have got a tube cutter, but by the time I've gone and got it and put this in and cut it, I could have done it with my knife. So just rocking the knife backwards and forwards, and you can cut through the tube without squashing it. So what I next want to do is just mark the point where this sort of the length that is proud of the dashboard. So I'm just going to pencil mark it. So in theory, if I push this in just as far as the pencil line and we glue that on the end, that's about the same distance. Still looks a bit far away to me, so I think what I've actually done is made something that's ultimately adjustable here, so we can glue it on the end and just push it in as far as we like. So yeah, I'm happy with that. That can go in the bin. Right, so a little bit of medium CA on the end of my tube there, and it is slightly narrower, so I've got to be very careful about positioning. Make sure it looks centered, which it doesn't currently. There we go. So that's our steering wheel and steering column done, created, ready to rock and roll. So we can prime that up now and paint that at our leisure with the other interior parts. I've cut out one of the decals and I'll put that with the main decals ready for applying when we do the dials and stuff.